Hey everyone, it's Rob Folio with Folio Properties here at Keller Williams in Nashville, and just wanted to go live here on Facebook, and you've maybe seen the recording, possibly on YouTube or even just through our mailer to our database here, and just wanted to give you all a market update. Just so you know, every Friday at 11 Central, we're going to be going live, giving you an update on what we're seeing in the market. Sometimes, directed more towards sellers, buyers, investors, whatever the case may be for that week, whatever message we're seeing. So mark it down. We'd love to have y'all either check it out live at 11, interact with us, ask us questions, and we'll be going live most of the time on my personal page. So friend me if you're seeing this on YouTube. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump in and get started, because the biggest thing that I want to make sure that we touch on today is going to be about what direction the market is heading in. I know there are, there's a lot of hearsay, a lot of just kind of what's the market doing type of things. I'm seeing a lot of my real estate agent friends, and I love you all. If you're seeing this on Facebook, there's no disrespect if you posted anything that I'm about to talk about or anything along those lines that contradicts it. And at the same time, I've been seeing so many people just bragging about, oh, I just got multiple offers on a home, and the market is doing such amazing things right now, and it's like, let's be real with the public as professionals. I think that's what's most important. So we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market, and then go into some actual statistics straight from our multiple listing service, the service that we use as realtors to not only list homes, but to track this market behavior as well. So we're going to dive into a couple of things here, and real quick, before we look at those stats, let's just look at those that's on the screen here. You can see that this is a graphic straight from the book Shift, written by Gary Keller, and to me it's a great visual as to the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market. In Nashville and just in Middle Tennessee, and really all over the country for the last few years, we've been in a seller's market. I know some markets may be different around the country. However, especially here in Middle Tennessee, it's been a seller's market, and a pretty strong seller's market. It's been softening a little bit the last year or two, which we'll dive into here shortly. However, the biggest difference between a seller's market and a buyer's market, it's really just supply and demand. I mean, it's just like anything that's out there. If you think about simple economics, supply and demand dictate price. And so, you look at what a seller's market has done. When there's more buyers out there and there's less inventory, that causes prices to rise. And when it transitions, and it basically prices drop because there's more inventory, there's fewer buyers, causes prices to go down. And I love this visual of like the seesaw, because like all economists say, or real estate economists say anyway, is typically a balanced market doesn't truly exist. Most of the time that balanced market is a transitional market. And we go from being in a seller's market to the transitional market for a very short period of time into a buyer's market, or vice versa, of course. And so we're going to dive into some stats on this stuff, and kind of the direction that we're seeing, and the numbers that we're seeing as well. Jessica, what did I leave out on this before we go into the numbers?
I think this is great. I think the only thing I'd note is that normally these shifts are driven by buyer activity. And in recent history, we're actually seeing something a little bit unique in that this is driven by inventory. And, that's why we're seeing new home construction be such a big factor, and also all sorts of things. And then, of course, everybody knows, with this virus activity that's happening, we've got a lot of interesting stats to look at here. So yeah, I'm excited to see the stats.
No, that's a great point too, Jessica. Before we get to the stats, you're right, because the buyer activity, that's what caused the shift, in the past. I mean, buyers were scared to get into the market, so there were fewer buyers, causing more inventory and prices to drop, 12, 13 years ago. And then, once it started to rise, 6, 7, 8 years ago, there was less inventory because, people were kind of scared still at that point. And then more buyers were coming in because they're like, man, these prices are so low, I've got to do something. And it's like anything, then less inventory, more buyers, prices rose. And it's been kind of that trend for the last, 7 or 8 years, sometimes stronger than others. But let's dive into some stats here. We're going to go through a couple of different ones. First one here is home sales. And what I've got pulled up, again, this is straight from our multiple listing service, the Real Tracks here in Middle Tennessee, stats that our MLS puts together for us. And I've pulled up just Davidson County, for those watching outside of Middle Tennessee, or even if you're in Middle Tennessee, your counties, that's Nashville's county. And so basically, it's just Davidson County, and these are numbers going back 3 years from the beginning of 2017 through today. And this is right here what we're looking at is homes for sale. And the reason I wanted to start here is to show you kind of what may be a very small window of opportunities for sellers to capitalize on the strong market that we were seeing for years. Reason why is just saying right here, let's take it back to the beginning of 2017. And you can see there's 3,100 homes basically for sale in Davidson County. That take it to beginning of this year, there were almost 4,100. So basically a 25% rise in 3 years, or very close to it, if I'm doing the quick mental math. Jessica, you've been with been here in Middle Tennessee for basically little more than 2 years. So you came. I know you came aboard, moved here January of 18. What was the difference, do you think, between like say the activity on our listings from when you first got here to like just say even the middle of last year?
I mean, especially coming from the market that I was, which was a fairly large city. I mean, the activity seemed crazy when I first got here. I mean, we put a property on the market and we get 17 offers in 3 days, and everybody was thrilled except the buyers, and it was constant activity. Like we could barely keep up with how many buyers there were compared to the properties. And so now, I mean, well, I'm sure you're about to talk about this, but that curve that we're seeing over on the right, I mean, it's a dramatic difference, and especially in the last year, we've been seeing a big change in that.
Well, definitely, and yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm getting to that curve because this steady rise. Again, we were like an extreme seller's market. Like this amount of homes for sale, where my mouse is on the left, like that 3,000, 3,200, in Davidson County. That's too low for the amount of people in our area, and that's why we saw, like you said, Jessica, when you got here in January of 18. That's why we would see 17 offers on a home in a weekend, and things along those lines, because the inventory levels were too low. And what we saw is that it was just slowly rising and creeping back up to, it's still a seller's market, and yet more balanced, getting closer to that transitional market. And the reason why I say that this is more of a this right here, and again, this is March of 2020, and we're going to likely bring these stats up again probably the first week in May, when we go live the first week in May, so that we can dive deeper into the April stats. But the numbers for March, you can see the amount of homes that are out there for sale, it's dropping. I mean, instead of seeing this curve that's slowly rising over the last few years, getting more to a balanced market, we're seeing the amount of homes that are out there actually drop, and justifiably so. I mean, with all the concerns out there are some homeowners that are saying, well, hey, let's just hang tight, let's figure it out later. They're not as concerned about prices as they are about safety, which I totally get. And this is the reason why this is the opportunity that we're in, like the opportunity zone, because as inventory levels drop, just to take it back to that graphic, less inventory is going to keep prices steady. It's going to help keep prices around where they've been. It's going to help sellers get the most amount of money they can for their property. Whereas if this trend line were to continue, which it very well could, in 6 months, we could be looking at a point somewhere up here, if you can see my mouse. And that's when we're going to start to see the changes. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, just like you said, I mean, it's very important to be safe and to understand what your priorities are. And if safety is number one, and you're okay with the price change or whatever, absolutely stick with that. But I think the part that's important is to make sure that you're understanding the choice that you're making. And so if safety is your priority, great. If money's your priority, great. Just know where we are in the market, and make that decision after you have the information.
Exactly, and I think that's a well put. Definitely well put, because there's no right answer in terms of what somebody should do, and that's the biggest reason I want to make sure that we're doing these live videos, to educate, because there's no right answer for a specific seller, and I never want somebody to think that we're pushing them into something when they're not ready, or they feel they're nervous about what's happening with with the virus, and I totally get that. And at the same time, it's like, make an educated decision. Don't just make a decision based on what the media is telling you, or what, some, too overly optimistic person is telling you out there. And, like this, again, this to me this is a sign that we're in a kind of an opportunity zone, or in this zone. Because again, if this trend line continues, and I think 3 years is a trend line, it's not a 3-month period or anything like that. It's showing that we were getting back to normal, that this is your chance to capitalize on low inventory when there still are buyers, which is actually another way to show that the market was getting back to normal. Is let's jump to days on market. And so this right here, days on market, is a stat that we use as real estate agents to show on average how long is it taking a home to go under contract. And this is, again, all of Davidson County for the last basically 3 years. And you can see a pretty substantial jump from the middle of last year on. And Jessica, it's funny because we were actually talking about this morning, how, we would go to our Keller Williams Nashville team meetings, and, because we are a pretty listing heavy business, at least more so than a lot of other agents that are out there. I mean, a lot of agents work with a ton of buyers, and we work with buyers as well, of course. So any buyers watching, we would love to help you. And at the same time, our listings are the life of our business. And, we were saying that we're seeing the market change when other people were saying opposite, right?
Yep,
And
just had to
so,
unmute myself there. Yeah, absolutely. I think probably for the last year, and it was so interesting pulling up these graphs earlier today, because it was like we weren't crazy. We saw, a year ago, we were like, man, it's really, if we're seeing these days on market just in our listings go up, a day here, a day there, and we look up these stats all the time, and so we could see that it wasn't just us. However, when you look at these 3 years, it's like, wow, it's really dramatic, the difference.
absolutely. Because I mean, even just look at, again, like we were talking about 2 years ago when you came on board, it's like January of 18, 52 days on the market. And again, that's an average. So even the homes that are, super hard to sell, luxury homes, homes that may have some sort of real negative about them that's preventing them to sell, like those are in there, just like the homes that are, that super attractive first time buyer home or investor home that we're getting, that, like we talked about before, 17 offers in a couple of days. All those are in the same number. And we were at 52 days on average, just, a little more than 2 years ago. Compare that to this year. January is 68 days. Last month in March, 70 days on the market. You can see this trend line really jumping. And this, again, is showing that we're getting closer to that balanced market. I'll be really curious to see once April comes about, with, is it going to get closer to 100? Because, some homes are taking longer to sell. It's, just everything that we're looking at, it's showing that. And yet, again, to jump back here to the homes for sale, with this being the case and inventory dropping, I'll be curious to see what that ends up doing here in April, And then the other thing that we wanted to, because again, the biggest thing that, if we're jumping back to this, and I'll get back to that last graph in a second, is we're talking about what type of market we're in, what type of market we're heading into, buyer's market, seller's market. And when we're talking about buyer demand, or how many buyers are out there, it's not just about inventory. It's about this. It's about the demand that's out there. It's about how many people actually want to buy a home, is what I'm getting at. And over the last 4 weeks, an article I read this morning, 22 million people have filed for unemployment. Obviously, that's going to change the real estate market in some form or fashion. If I had to guess, it's likely going to be something like this, where there's fewer buyers. You see on the left side, fewer buyers, because unfortunately, some of those 22 million people were in the home buying market. They were saying, hey, we want to buy a home in 2020. And now all of a sudden their income has dropped, and they now can't get approved for a mortgage, and that's going to affect the demand, which ultimately will affect prices. Because even if supply, like right here, this is the last graph that we're gonna look at for today, is the months of supply. Even if months of supply were to stay, which I don't know how it's going to stay somewhere in this range. As you can see, for the last year, it's been, you can see 3.3 to 3.4, only topped at 3.6. And actually, before I even talk about what these numbers are, make sure I explain months of supply is just a statistic that says, if no new homes were to come on the market, how long would it take the real estate market to basically, for every home to sell? And so when we're talking about 3.4, months of supply out there right now, what that's saying is that it would take 3.4 months for every home in Davidson County to sell if nothing else were to come about. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that right, Jessica?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Yep.
Okay, perfect. And so, and again, just to compare to how it was, say, 3 years ago, 2.7 months of supply may not sound like a huge difference, but that's a change. It's definitely a change compared to where it was before. And of course, my mouse just went out on me, so give me a second. I may leave this screen up for a second for us. But that said, I do think it's a pretty big change what we're seeing, getting up here to about 3.4 months of supply where we're at right now. And the interesting thing that I'm seeing as well is if you just look at that trend line, again, just like we were talking about before with days on the market creeping up, with the the amount of homes that were up there creeping up, months of supply was creeping up as well, steadily over the last few years, getting closer to that balanced market. Economists, real estate economists, they always say that 5 to 7 months is that transitional balanced market that we're in, right? So basically, being somewhere in that that 5 to 7 months that's balanced. Above 7 months starts to get to a buyer's market, and below 5 is a seller's market. And the further you get from that point of equilibrium, that's how more of an extreme market it is. So that's why when we were talking, say, 3 years ago, that 2.7 months of supply here, that was basically an extreme seller's market that we were in. And I didn't pull up what it was like in 2009, just say, or 2011, but that was an extreme buyer's market. I'd have to look and see what the exact numbers were, but I'm sure it was plenty above 7. And so I just wanted to share that, because we're seeing the trend line go that way anyway. And when we see an economic event happen like the unfortunate pandemic that we're in right now, it's going to push it over the edge, basically. And so we want to make sure we share all this stuff with you, because even though, like, and honestly, one of the biggest reasons for this particular conversation that I wanted to have is I had a conversation this morning with a homeowner, and unfortunately his listing had expired, meaning he had it listed on the market for a few months with another real estate agent. And I talked with him about the basically about the home, about what he wanted for the home. And he was basically pretty firm on his price. He was saying, I'm not really coming off my number. This is what I want to get for the property. And he had it listed for 6 months at that price, and he didn't get it. And as we see, the market's changing and not exactly going in his favor in terms of pricing and demand. And when I brought up to him the fact that the market's changing, he was almost in denial about it. Thinking, oh, well, the Middle Tennessee market's so strong, it's so strong. I'm hearing all these real estate agents say it's such an amazing market. What do you say? And almost in denial about what's happening. And again, that 22 million people that filed for unemployment, I think that's going to make this trend line. I may just keep it on here for the next couple of minutes as we finish up our conversation. I think this trend line is going to continue to go that way, go up and be pretty extreme, because it's there's just no way that when there's less buyers that are out there, even if just a quarter of, or even a 10% of that 22 million were in the buying market, so 2 million people were out there thinking about buying a home. Well, in reality, in our country, about 5 million homes sell every year. So that's 40% of the buyers are now gone, if you think about it. And that's going to affect all this. And so I just think it's important that we have these real conversations and help you all understand really what we're looking at. And obviously, if you all have questions, reach out, either comment on this live stream if you're on here live. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, or follow us at Folia Properties on Facebook. If you have a question, you can PM me. You can email us at info@foliaproperties.com as well. And Jessica, do we have any questions or any comments on the live stream? Nothing right now. Okay, perfect.
Nope, not yet.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, we're at about 20 minutes. I want to, definitely don't want these videos to be too long, so we can probably finish up here. Is there anything that I missed that we wanted to make sure that we got in?
I don't think we missed anything. I do think, I mean, it's just important to touch on one more time that, the whole point of this video is just to share that information, like you said, so that people know what's actually happening. And it's not, Facebook news or, well, my neighbor said this. It's real statistical information for our area, showing the difference between now and 3 years ago, and how it really is. There's a shift here. It's dramatic, and in some ways it's great, and in some ways it's it's different. So it's just important to have the information so that everyone can make the best decisions for them, whether it's staying in their home for another 5 years or whether it's selling or buying right now. It's always important to have the accurate information in order to make the right decision.
Well put, well put. And I'd say it's not even just, 3 years ago, 1 year ago, it's such a rise here with days on the market and, just to the different market that we're seeing even from 12 months ago to today. And I'll be really curious to see what April 2020 looks like, not only for this number, months of supply. I mean, because we're in a new market. I mean, homes for sale as well. I mean, this is a market that we've never seen before. I mean, it doesn't matter if somebody's been in the real estate industry for, I mean, I've been in since 2013, so for 7 years, or if they've been in for 70 years somehow, it doesn't matter how long they've been. They've never seen a market shift because of a worldwide pandemic. We've seen market shifts because of basically the lending industry collapse of 2007, or recessions, or anything that's happened. I mean, Gary Keller famously tells a story about how he got his real estate license 40-ish years ago, somewhere in there, and 6 months later interest rates were like 18% because of everything that's happening in the economy. Like, people have seen markets change over the years, and yet no one has seen it happen because of people being scared to leave their homes. And so just wanted to share all these facts, like Jessica said. We want to make sure that we're keeping you informed. Again, if you have any questions, give us a shout, reach out to us directly at Folia Properties. You can hit us up on Facebook, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel as well. You can email us, info at Folia Properties. So my last name, FOGLIA properties.com. You can also call us direct, 615-591-5665, excuse me. And we'd love to answer any questions that you have, even if you're just wanting information right now. That's what we want to be, is just your source of information. You're getting you real info here, getting you the facts, and help you any way we can. So I think we'll sign off here on the video. Give us a shout if we can help. And everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and be good to each other.
Yeah. See you next week.